Hi everybody, welcome to All Games New and Old. I'm David Rodriguez.
I'm Hillary Rodriguez.
And today we're going to talk about something that I think just about every gamer can relate to, and that is the Shelf of Shame. I was recently on an episode of the Board Game Community Show podcast, hosted by Riley Stock, and it's fantastic. You should definitely listen, not just to my episode. I mean, I'm not being that arrogant. Really, any episode, they're all fantastic. But we want to talk about our Shelves of Shame, and I was like, oh god, I might have 30 or even 35. Yeah, it was up a lot closer to 70, and I was like, I need to do something about this. So I made a New Year's resolution. I want to get the Shelf of Shame down to, I keep changing this number, but I'm going to say 35, because that's like about half by the end of this year. This is going to be impossible. Because there's, Kickstarters that will show up and what have you, and also just the amount of reviews we could do each year, and therefore the gameplay is like, that's asking a lot. But if I at least set that as my goal, I figure I can at least make a good dent in it. So I figured, what better way to kind of plan for this than by making the top 10 games from our Shelf of Shame that we want to play this year. So I'm not including any Kickstarters that have not arrived. It's all going to be stuff that we have currently, because you never know with Kickstarter what's going to actually show up and when. So, with that being said, I just said Kickstarter a lot, but I'm going to say let's kick it off anyway. The number 10 game on this list for me is Blitz Bowl. Blitz Bowl is I believe just a Barnes & Noble exclusive, so I don't know if it's available outside the US, or I imagine it's available in England, because that's where Games Workshop is. But this is like a streamlined, smaller, slimmed-down version of Games Workshop's Blood Bowl. Blood Bowl is cool. I've only really played the video game adaptation of it, which is pretty much identical. The problem with it is it's a very long game, and I only have room in my life for so many very long games. And Blitz Bowl, on the other hand, is supposed to take like a half hour to 45 minutes to play, and you still can do all the different teams from Warhammer Fantasy if you want to. Because while I don't give a single dang about sports at all, fantasy sports, and I don't mean what most people call fantasy football, but I mean fantasy football because it's fantasy beings like orcs and elves and all that playing it. That's awesome. When you can literally murder each other on the field. That's fun to me. I love it. So I'm really curious to try this game. I put it together and I just have not gotten into it and done it. But I really want to try it and see if maybe this is more my speed. And maybe if we absolutely love it, I can go on and try Blood Bowl again. But for now, Blitz Bowl seems just about the right length of time for me to get into this game of real fantasy football and enjoy it. And I'm really excited to try it out. So that's my number 10, Blitz Bowl.
I'm going to start with a little caveat on this list as well. So I had no idea we had so many games that was on our Shelf of Shame. They just show up and they go away, and then he goes, let's try this game, and I say, okay. So me looking at this list was the first time I even were aware that we own some of these games. So I don't really know, unless it's like a new version of a game. A lot of the games that are that we have on our Shelf of Shame are games that I've never heard of before. So I just kind of went through the list and went off of the titles of which games sounded like it'd be something that I would want to try. And then I looked into the games a little bit more and then narrowed it down to 10 games that I want to try out. So there might be some games on the list that, sound fun, but I just, based on the title, I passed it up. So
yeah, I'm really the one of us that listens to all the board game media and picks the games out for the most part. So we are coming at this from a different angle, but yeah. I think that's fine.
Yeah. So my number 10 is gonna be Gods of Egypt. I really like Egyptian themed stuff. I have for as long as I can remember. So we have a couple of Egyptian themed games, and this one sounded a little bit more interesting to me. Basically, you're playing as the gods, and you're trying to become the only god that people worship.
Yeah, it narrowly missed my list. It's by Eric Lang, who is almost universally fantastic. we're definitely going to play 2-player for sure. And I want to try with more players, though, because then it gets into this weird... It has this weird mechanic that I think most people know the game have heard of, where at a certain point in the game, the two people who are in the last place merge together and form sort of like one god. So for them, it suddenly becomes cooperative, trying to defeat the others, but everyone else is still doing their own thing. And some people love that, and some people hate it. So I don't even know where we'll fall. I mean, I got the game, so I think it at least sounds interesting. Yeah. But yeah, it should be cool. So I'm excited about that one too. Yeah. So my number 9 is Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. This is a 4X game set in a fantasy world. It's designed by Scott Alms, who does all the Tiny Epic games. This is not a tiny game. Epic, probably. Tiny, not so much. My understanding is that the different races you can play start out all kind of the same, but the way they develop makes them all very different. And you're trying to, build up your lands and take over the other lands and kick everybody out. And it's just this crazy brouhaha. I think at high player counts, it becomes very long. I don't think it necessarily is it's at lower player counts, but time will tell. But it has all these crazy cool, like, cardboard cutouts that are like flying machines and all kind of weird stuff. And I'm just really excited to try it. I think it looks really, really neat. I've heard good things about it from some other people we play games with. So I'm really excited to try it. Heroes of Land, Air, and Sea. It's my number 9.
My number 9 is going to be Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. It sounds really interesting. Basically, it takes place 20 years after Dr. Frankenstein has died. And so there's a whole bunch of scientists that are all traveling to England to, because Frankenstein's monster is still around. And so they're trying to kind of figure out how, like, all the different scientists have different, like, reasons behind it. But, you're basically trying to collect pieces and to be able to kind of recreate Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a cool, spooky looking game. I'm not saying we'll talk about it later, but we might. My number 8 game I want to play from our shelf time this year is Western Legends. I held off on this for a while, and my reason's absolutely stupid, unless you know me. The reason why, this is so dumb, it really is because one of the many things, because it's like an open sandbox cowboy game, right? So you can be a good guy, you can be a bad guy, you can rob the bank, you can save people, you do whatever. And I don't know how you compete doing this, but you do. But one of the things you do it is play poker. And I have a strong aversion to regular playing cards. Like I hate them. I hate them. And so like I didn't want to get it, but I'm like, well, that's kind of dumb. And I don't have to actually play the poker if I really don't want to in the game. And it's not like I have to play poker, like actually play poker in the game. So I looked past my completely irrational hatred of card games because I thought an open world cowboy game where you could be, play it kind of any way you wanted to sounded fantastic. And I've heard great things about it too. So that is a game I want to try, Western Legends. And, hopefully I won't be too offended when I see like the Ace of Spades or whatever. I don't know what's going to happen. But anyway, yeah. I'm excited about it. I do want to try it a lot.
My number 8 is Folklore the Affliction. It's a co-op game where you're basically citizens of a town trying to get rid of all the vampires and the lycrans and before you turn into one of them yourself. Yeah, it looks really cool.
So I mentioned several videos that like I'm trying to find like the perfect adventure game that really like hits with me, and I was making this list and I was sure Folklore was going to be on there, and I was like, I cannot have this list completely adventure games, or at least almost complete. So I limited it down and cut out a lot of those that maybe should technically be in the top 10 perhaps, but I was trying to have a little more variety in there, and Folklore is definitely in that as well because it sounds fantastic and I'm excited about trying that one out too, for sure. All right. My number 7 is Lost Ruins of Arnak. This game has a very Indiana Jones feel, and it combines worker placement and deck building. So I'm sold. It's beautiful. It looks fantastic, and I've heard really almost nothing but good things about it. It's a very popular game, and it was very hard to get for a long time. So I'm really excited to try it out. I think I'm going to like it quite a lot because, again, like I said, pretty much, I haven't heard a single negative thing, I don't think. So, fantastic. Lost Ruins of Arnak.
My number 7 is Firefly Adventures. It's a Firefly co-op board game. The thing that really kind of caught my eye when I was like doing a quick skim of gameplay on this one is that each character has 2 models because there's 2 different modes that you can do for your turn action. There's a casual mode and there's a heroic mode. And so depending on what you're doing, like you might want to be a little bit more sneaky, so you want to be casual, or you might want to be going in guns blazing and be more heroic. And so like that concept seems really interesting to me, so I'm curious to see how that plays.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. I've really only heard one podcast actually talk about that. The D6 Generation talked about it, and they did sort of not a full live play, but kind of, and it sounded like they had a lot of crazy stuff happen. We should try that soon, because there's a couple expansions for it that have some of the characters that aren't in that box, and I want to make sure that if we like it, we can still get them somewhere. So, like, I mean, we don't have River. What? Gotta have River. Let's not be ridiculous about this. But anyway, but only if the game's good, obviously. But yeah, I'm excited about that too. It sounds cool. My number 6 is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. We haven't played any Legacy games. I think that's because it's hard to feel like we can get the same people together for one game after another of the same game. It's tricky just because of how our life is. But I really wanted to try this, and pretty much everyone says that Season 1 is the one to start with. It sounds obvious, but, you know, I don't know. I was also very interested in Season 0. I think that one looks really fascinating, too. So, but we're going to do Season 1 at some point. I'm excited to try it out because Pandemic is just... The base Pandemic is just an evergreen title, and in the Pandemic element, I hear it's just kind of almost mind-blowing. So I definitely want to check that out. I'm excited about Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
My number 6 is Gargoyles Awakening. It's based off of the old Disney cartoon, which I love. It's one of my top 10 like cartoons I remember from my childhood. The thing that I think it sounded interesting about this one is that it's pretty much all co-op. There's 4 different like storylines to go through, and you're playing as the Gargoyles or Detective. I want to say Latoya, but you're playing as the Gargoyles and the Detective versus Xanatos and Demona, and except for one version of the story mode, it's basically many against one. That one player plays as Xanatos and Demona, and the other players play as the Gargoyles. So you can kind of play it either way. You can play it co-op or competitive. So that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think that's fun. And Ravensburger, I'm pretty sure is the one who put that out. Just puts out great stuff in general. So I don't think you can go wrong with that. My number 5, I'm going to lose a little gamer card here that I haven't played this yet, is Scythe. I haven't played Scythe, despite it being out since, I don't know, 2015, 2016, something like that, and everyone apparently loving the bejesus out of that game. And I have to admit, the art is fantastic, where, you know, he took these kind of, like, cool, like, either, like, I don't know, and I want to say pastoral, I don't know if that's the right word. Anyway, these paintings like you might see at a Motel 6. And then put crazy mechs in them. It's cool. And for some reason, even though I heard nothing but rave reviews, something about the way it was described to me, I was like, I don't know if I'll dig that. Not really sure. And then I played My Little Scythe, which is, of course, a much simplified version of that, but the basic gist of the actions are the same, even though the theme is very different. And I was like, damn, this is a good game. I kind of could go for a more complicated version of this. And so I'm excited to try that out. I got the separate board you could buy that you can kind of tailor it down so it's better at 2 players. I know a lot of people I've heard say that the main board in the game at 2 players, you're just so like far apart from each other that you may not ever really interact, and that's generally a big part of the game. So I want to try it both ways, see how that goes. And of course, I want to try it at more players too. But oh man, so many gamers can't be wrong. And it's put out by Stonemaier, and they made Viticulture. So I mean, it has to be good, right? I'm sure it is good, and I'm excited to give that one a shot sometime, hopefully soon. So that is my number 5, Scythe.
My number 5, it's actually kind of 2 games, but they can be played together. So it's Role Player and Role Player Adventures.
Oh yeah.
So a game based off of building your character sounds really weird to me, but the way I've actually heard, that's one of the games I have heard people talk about, and it sounds really interesting. So I'm excited to try that one out.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's another one that I was like, well, I cannot fill this all with adventure games, so I'm going to take that off, even though I really wanted to say that one of the things that has me most excited looking through the characters in this box is you can play a penguin. You can play a penguin in this game. What? I don't know, but that's fantastic. I don't know if they're good, maybe they're horrible. I don't care. You can play a penguin in armor. That's great. That's so fantastic. I'm so excited about that. Watch, I'm not even going to play the penguin. I'm like, I want to be a dark elf like I always do, but whatever. But you can play a penguin. I'm just glad the option's there.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about that. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up. All right. My number 4 is Forbidden Stars. This is a big, long, but not as long as Twilight Imperium by any stretch, crazy science fiction set in the Warhammer 40k universe game where you're like vying for control of the galaxies, but there's warp storms that get in your way and all kinds of crazy stuff. And there's 4 factions that all play very differently. I believe this has Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Orcs, and Eldar. And this game you can no longer find easily because Games Workshop is no longer having Fantasy Flight make their games. So there will not be expansions, which is sort of sad because there are a lot of different Warhammer 40k groups that could stick in there. But it's also okay because it is a game that takes at least a few hours to play, so I don't imagine we will play it a lot, no matter how much we like it. So I think having 4 factions is probably all right. And this is just another game that I've never heard anyone say anything bad about. I mean, some of them say it's so long, but god dang, is it worth it. So I'm really excited to try that. I've heard people purely speculate that maybe they'll release it in like the Twilight Imperium universe, since that's still a Fantasy Flight thing, and have the same mechanics, and then they can have expansions galore. But I like the Warhammer 40k universe. I don't know that much about the Twilight Imperium universe, and it's got orcs. I mean, it can just be orcs. I mean, come on. I don't know. It's fantastic. I definitely want to give it a shot, and thankfully we've got some table room over this right now, so if it is like a very long game, we can be like, okay, well, let's pause it here, and we can come back later and maybe have a hope of actually getting it, whereas if we had to do it on our dining room table, the children would run off with pieces and we'd never know what was happening anymore, so we can't do that then. But I'm really excited to try it, and I'm surprised for a game that's supposed to be so big. If I remember right, the rulebook's not, I mean, it's not small by any stretch, but it's not unreasonably gigantic. I mean, it's pretty average size, so I don't think it's that rules heavy as much as there's just a lot that you're doing and moving pieces around, and I don't know. I think it's going to be real good, and I'm excited to give it a shot. And then I'm going to be all whining that there's not going to be expansion. Like, why can't I be Necrons? Anyway, but that's my number 4, Forbidden Stars. Excited about it.
All right. My number 4 is going to be Tiny Epic Pirates. Mm-hmm. I really enjoy the Tiny Epic games, and I really like pirates, so I'm excited to try out one of their games that's pirates themed. So
yeah, that one's really cool. I did an unboxing of that. I think the art in that is stellar, and it just looks fun. So yeah. Can't argue with that. So my number 3 is Galaxy Hunters. That was a Kickstarter that I got last year. It sounds really cool because when you start out, you combine like a pilot with a mech, and then depending on which ones you combine, their abilities can be kind of different, which I like that sort of thing to start with. And then through the whole game, you can customize your mech, adding weapons and shields and all sorts of stuff. And then you're not really going head to head and fighting each other. You're going out and you're taking on like mutants that are taking over parts of the galaxy, and you're trying to destroy them and bring them back, and hence the hunter part. And I guess you're trying to be the best at that, maybe make the most money. I'm not sure what the end goal is. One thing that I've heard that I'm curious how it'll be is there's a lot of different resources in this game, more so than most games have, which I'm wondering if I'll go anything like, well, this is silly. Why do we need, I don't remember, 6, 7, whatever resources? That seems crazy. That being said, while it has been mentioned by everyone that I've heard talk about it, no one said it's so awful. There's too many resources. So I think it's probably okay. I'm just kind of curious how that will be. But I'm excited to try it because I really like that customization in starting your character. And then I love when you can then build out your character different ways through the game, because I just like trying different things, saying, well, maybe this way will work better for me, or maybe that way. Well, I think that sounds really fun, and it looks great. It has some really cool models, including one non-IP infringing Optimus Prime looking guy. Pretty fantastic. So at least in the with the Kickstarter stuff it does. So I'm excited about that one. I want to give that a try for sure. That's Galaxy Hunters.
My number 3 is going to be Castle Panic. I know this is a game that's been around for a while. But it was just one that never really got on our radar. But then we got my first Castle Panic to play with our middle child, and she loves that game a lot. And so it's a fun game, but it's like it's a game it's fun to play with her, but it's still the mechanics, like it's a game that I wouldn't want to just have us play. So I'm really curious to try out the a more adult version of and play the original Castle Panic and see if we like that one.
Yeah, I watched a little video on how to play on it, and it looks crazy.
Yeah.
Like fun. Crazy fun, not crazy bad. So I'm excited about that one too. But yeah, I think it came out like 2012 or 2009 or something. Man, it's been out for a while, but whatever. We're all games new and old. we do that kind of thing. All right. So my number 2, and I think this might be our first crossover, actually, is Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. Oh man, like I like spooky games, and this has that feel to it. Like she's saying, you're trying to create your own Frankenstein monster, and I would say there's a lot of things that are neat about this. Like you have to store up electricity, you have to get body parts, and there's different quality body parts, right? Like if you dig up like an old grave, you're gonna get pretty cruddy body parts. If you buy body parts from like a medical lab or something, they could be pretty fresh. But there's also something where it's tracing your humanity. So all fine if you get those fresh body parts because you bought them from like a medical lab or something. Little different if you got those fresh body parts because you made a body, which you can do in that game. And so you want to try to hold on to your humanity, but sometimes you got to get those fresh body parts. So I'm excited about it. It is a grisly looking game. And I held off on this one, getting this one for a while, because at first I heard that most people said that it kind of went on longer than they wanted it to, but they'd since released a PDF rule change, so you can start off basically a little further into the game. So you start with some components that usually you have to build up to get, so you can have a little bit shorter version of it. I want to try both versions to see what we think, but I think it's neat that they did that. They heard the community say that was maybe a little bit of a problem for them, and they gave you an alternate way to play it so that you can actually fit it into a more reasonable time.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so smart. And I just love the theme. I think it sounds really, ooky spooky and fantastic and gory and frightening. So I'm down with Abomination, the Heir of Frankenstein. I'm very excited to try that out.
All right. My number 2 is another crossover,
Whoa.
and it's going to be Pandemic Legacy, Season 1. The original Pandemic game is one of the very first hobby games that we got, and it still holds up when we play it. And so I'm excited to try something new with it. So,
yeah, me too. It's going to be awesome. I have no doubt at all. So, all right, my number 1, the game I am most excited to play. This is an adventure game. This is the one I decided to put. I just did one, right? Yeah, this is the one I decided to put on the list. Even though there are many great ones in the collection that I definitely want to try. But this is Madara Unintentional Malum. I did an unboxing for this a while back, so if you missed it, check it out. But it is kind of a dungeon crawler game, but it's got a whole campaign to it. And there's a couple things that I think are cool about the characters. One is that you might pick the character that looks really magical and like fast, but you can basically build up that character to be anything you want. You don't have to make this person like the magical fast person if that's what you want. You can make that person the total like badass tank if that's what you want to do. You can take them any direction you want, which is cool. Another thing that's cool is my understanding, I've not read into the background of it, but I heard somewhere recently that all the characters in this game start off as normal people in Seattle, which is like a stone's throw away from us, which I think is great. And then they go to this magical land and they become their more magical self, and then they go on their big adventure. I think there's also like like you can definitely read all the text, but if I remember right, I think there's like a thing you can go to and it has voice actors reading it to you, which I think sounds fantastic. What I was thinking, I don't think this is in the game, but what I really hope is in this is, since they're all from Seattle, there should be certain things that are in this game. You should need coffee to keep that should be your main like energy resource. Like your action points will go away if you don't drink coffee. This is not in the game. I'm just saying that it should be. Everyone should have some sort of seasonal affective disorder. Definitely important. And most importantly of all, I don't know if you've heard of the Seattle Freeze, but here's what should happen. Your character should all be like, yeah, sure, we'll form a party, but you never do. Like, you just kind of like, you'll do your own thing, and that's fine. But you never really are going to... This makes sense to, like, 2 people that are watching this video. It's this thing, the Seattle, he's like, yeah, we'll get together later. You don't get together later. It's very hard. Seattle Freeze, it's a thing. Look it up. I hope that's in this game. It's not. It's absolutely not in this game. I would be shocked if it is. But, oh my god, I would laugh so hard if there was even just a nod to any of this stuff. God, I hope there is. Just a little, give me a little something Succubus Publishing. Or there's, like, further expansions down the road that I don't at all need yet, because I think there's a ton of adventure in that one box. But, man, give us a little something Succubus Publishing. Just, come on. A little nudge about Seattle. You gotta, come on. You gotta, have there be a gum wall. Look up the gum wall.
Throw fish at people.
Throw fish. Come to Seattle. It's really cool. You gotta check it out. Don't expect to make a lot of friends, but they'll say they will. Yeah. Anyway, I'm getting on tangents. But either way, it looks great. The art's fantastic, if maybe a bit too sexy in spots. But the models are amazing. Oh, I just really want to try this game. It looks so freaking cool. I hope that it can be everything that Descent Legends of the Dark wasn't, even though that was a fine game. It was a fine game. We gave it a decent review. It wasn't bad, but it's not the one I'm looking for. It's not the one for me. It'll find happiness elsewhere. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, great game, probably. Yeah. Madara, Unintentional Malum. Really want to play it. That's my number one. Right. Woo!
My number one is also an adventure game, so maybe that'll be the one. Oh. It's going to be the full version of Gloomhaven.
I knew that. I would have been so shocked if you did not pick that as your number one. I would have been amazed.
I've been enjoying Jaws of the Lion so much that I really want to break into that big box and see what go farther into that universe.
Yeah, me too. And I think I don't know the exact mechanic of this, so forgive me. Probably most of you watching this have played it or know of it, but I may be getting something wrong. But if my understanding is whatever character you pick at the beginning, you go to a certain point and then they retire basically, and then you pull in a new character to play, and that's how you like unlock different characters. And I think that's really neat because in Jaws of the Lion you pretty much just play your one character, which is also really cool. But I think it's kind of neat that you can get to a point where it's like, well, now if you want to keep growing and expand more, you're going to need to like take this different person on this adventure path. I'm really excited about it. I got an organizer for it because otherwise it's terrifying. But there's always people who dislike almost any game, but it seems like most people really love it. And unless it is way haywire from Jaws of the Lion, I don't think there's a chance that we're not going to like it. So I'm very excited about that one too. But I figured you would talk about it. Yeah. So I could cut that one off of my adventure game list because you're going to probably mention that. I would be shocked if that was not your number one. All right, so those are our top 10 games on our Shelf of Shame that we would like to make sure we play this year. I think we can probably commit to getting these 18, so we had 2 crossovers. Am I doing math correctly? Maybe.
18 or 17.
Something. Anyway, we can get these games played this year. Maybe. We'll see. We're going to try. There's a lot, there's a lot of games to play out there. But we're excited about those. Have you played any of them? I'd love to hear your thoughts on them and what your impressions were. Or do you have a Shelf of Shame game or games that you would tell me about that you're dying to play? Because I'd love to hear about that too. So definitely leave a message, let me know, or reach out to me on Twitter. All that information's at the end of the video and our little outro video thing. So feel free anytime. I love to talk about this stuff. So I hope that this list has been fun for you to listen to. If it has, please hit like and subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can know about the next time we put out a video. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you over on the table again at All Games New and Old.
Bye.
So my number 9 is Heroes... Wait, what's the order?
My number 8 is going to be Folklore, the Affiliation.
Affliction.
Folklore, the bleh.
It's hard to say.
Yeah. It has different, if I remember correctly, yeah. Alright. I'm sorry, getting it confused with
That's funny how that just happened.